Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Hey guys, it's me. Good morning, good evening. It's Monday night, and we've got a great show ahead for you. Sorry about that little blurb. I hit the wrong button at the wrong time. Everything came through at once. Anyway, we've got a great guest for you tonight, Mike Rexeker. I think I pronounced his name right. I hope I did. Sorry if I didn't. But he has done a lot of TV programs with Discovery Channel and other shows. And we're going to talk to him, find out why he got into this, and some other details. Plus, we're going to talk about shadow people. Shadow people are really creepy. If anybody that doesn't know about shadow people, they just show up as shadows. It's like they can't remember what their body looked like or anything, but you'll see them standing out of the corner of your eye, standing looking at you. And they're just maybe 6 feet tall, and they're just a shadow. Sometimes they have a hat on, sometimes they don't. I know investigating, I've run into two very, very clear shadow people. So it'll be interesting to see what Mike's take on all this. So let me get Mike on without further ado. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Charlotte. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty well. A little later out here because I'm on the East Coast. But it's a good start to the week. Finally through with February, so into March.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've been wanting to interview you for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been friends on Facebook for a long time too. So I mean, we go back a ways.
Quite a ways.
Tell everybody about how you got into all this.
I've been involved some way, shape, or form with the paranormal for about 30 years. But my interest really started much younger than that, when I was about 8 years old, and woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my room. You're kind of introed the shadow people aspect, and that was really my first major experience, was with a shadow person. But I had no idea at the time that that's what it was. I thought there was an intruder in the house and it was about to kill me. But of course, I'm still alive to tell the tale. But so this thing, I was scared. I was terrified because I was only about 8 years old. I tried to scream, my mouth opened up, and nothing came out because I was just so terrified. And the thing actually approached my bed, leaned over. I'm looking up into this thing. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. It's just all blackness. And it actually did something really bizarre. It grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and then ran off down the hall. By that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom. And, they tried to console me, just told me that I had a bad dream, but, I was awake for this whole thing. So this was, my first major experience in the paranormal. And, like I said, I've been kind of involved for about 30 years now. And, that was when I was in high school. It had no idea from, paranormal investigations at the time, and about all you got back then, because we didn't have the TV shows and all that stuff. There's no internet. You might get a glimpse of it as far as, what a paranormal investigation was on, like In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. And my friend David and I were at our friend Lori's house, and she just kind of casually remarked while we were kind of shooting the breeze that she thought her house was haunted. And David and I were looking at each other like, whoa, this is kind of cool. Okay, tell us about it. And so she goes on about, how there's the old family cemetery in the backyard, and these different things are happening around the house. But the major thing was that in her bedroom, anytime that she would like tack up something on the wall, it would always fall down, whether it was like a day, a week, whatever. Later, she couldn't keep anything tacked up on this wall. So we're going to go investigate, my friend David and I. This is, again, I had no idea you called it a paranormal investigation, but we're checking it out. And so we go up there, take a look around the room, checking out this wall and everything. And I didn't realize this about my friend David at that time, but he was an extremely sensitive guy. He put his hand flat to the wall like that. And all of a sudden he turned this bright red and started sweating profusely. And I'm looking at David like, oh my gosh, what's going on with my friend? And so he started going like wall to wall in the house to see if there were any other hot spots. And that was kind of the moment that I knew that this was something I was going to be involved with for the rest of my life.
Interesting. Now, you've done a lot of research on shadow people, and I know that's the big mystery. I mean, for years we've been trying to figure out what these things are. You know, are they people that don't remember what their body looked like, or what have you discovered through your research?
Yeah, quite a bit, and these are very mysterious entities. We're still, finding out a lot about them. There's no one right answer. We as humans try to compartmentalize everything. It's a nice, pretty package, and that's just really not the case with shadow entities. Some are just human spirits that are trying to manifest and can't, fully come off as an apparition, so they're just a shadow. I believe what a kind of quote unquote true shadow person is an interdimensional being that has come here from some other plane of existence. Some of these could possibly be extraterrestrial. Some may even be time travelers, or and oddly enough, they may even be light beings, and the brightness of their light is so bright that our eyes can't perceive it, and all we're left is the actual bodily part of it. So there's a lot of different things that these things could be.
And of course, you've written a book about this. And have you gone on cases to investigate these things for people? And being able to go ahead.
No, sure. A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people. So this recounts a lot of my experiences with shadow entities. One story I already related to you is in there, and several others. I've had a lot of experience with shadow entities, actually. But I've also collected stories from other people, and I'm in the middle of a project right now called The Shadow Dimension, which is a docu-series about shadow entities and going to specific locations in search of this phenomenon, locations that are known to have these shadows, and trying to get to the bottom of what they actually are. So yeah, there's a lot within the book, and some moments from the filming and people that I had interviewed for The Shadow Dimension are actually in there. I just updated the book with a second edition last month. And so I'm continuously diving into this research and trying to keep people updated.
Do you find that maybe like with a lot of the paranormal activity that we investigate, it's a certain type of person that attracts it, as far as shadow people go, because not everybody sees them?
Yeah, you're right. Not everybody sees them. And I think what's going on is, we each have our own personal resonance. So some people see more shadows and apparitions, while some people see more apparitions than shadows. I happen to be one that sees more shadows. But, we each have our own, personal resonance. We each vibrate at a little bit of a different frequency. And when these things are interacting with our world, they have their own frequency as well. So, a really fascinating moment that happened almost 2 years ago now. We were investigating the Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois. There's 5 of us up there. It was actually right at the end of our Haunted Road Media Paracon that we had put together, and this was the investigation part of it. And we were actually doing an EVP session in the one corner room, the very upstairs abandoned section of the hotel. And while we're doing this session, all of a sudden we start hearing some things from down the one hallway. So go out there, looking down the hall, and there's this black smoke that's billowing up at the end of the hall, and it's coming closer and it's coming closer. And as it's coming closer, it starts to creep up the wall on the right-hand side of the hallway, and then creep back down and creep back up as it's coming closer. And then all of a sudden, the last time it creeped back up that wall, it morphed into the apparition of a little girl. So here's, a shadow that's actually a human spirit. But what was fascinating is that, we're trying to coax her closer. She'd only go so far down the hall, but we all saw her a little differently. So I saw her from basically her head all the way down to about her knees, and then she faded out. But other people saw her the opposite way. They saw her feet, and then she kind of faded out at the top of the head. And other people just kind of saw the torso, but they saw the little nightgown or dress that she was wearing. So this kind of gives credence to this idea that, we're all going to see these things a little differently based on our own personal vibration.
Well, it's interesting because the story you told about what happened to you when you were young is similar to what happened to us during an investigation up in Columbia. We were in this hotel I think it's a Fallon Hotel we were in, and we were in the lobby area, and we were sitting there doing a session. It was about probably 1 a.m, and it was dark down the hall, and I was facing the door. The door was beautiful. It was all people that don't go in these old hotels. The doors are usually ornate stained glass and all this. It looks like the Titanic door, And the
they're beautiful.
The only light coming in was through this door. And so one of the investigators, while I was doing the session, says, "Hey, there's someone down at the end of the hallway." And I said, "Okay." So I start, talking to whoever it is. This guy, it was a man, probably about 6 feet tall, and we could see him. He was a shadow person, and we could see him clearly because of the light coming in through the door. And he walked up past me and stood and faced all of us, probably not more than 7 feet away from us. And he stood there. And at that point, the team erupts and says, "Look, we don't want you here." I guess some people got freaked out because they can be really imposing to look at because they're dark. And "We don't want you here. Go, 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 go." And so we watched him go through the door.
Oh, wow.
So then I started the session up again, and I saw him come back through the door to come watch us.
Yeah, that just sounds like, a curious spirit. And for whatever reason, he could only, come off as far as a shadow who's probably, one of the resident ghosts or spirits of the hotel, curious about what you guys are doing and just checking it out.
It's just interesting that we had 6 witnesses, because you don't always get that. It's always somebody by themselves that has to somehow prove it happened, or you have to go back over the camera footage or whatever. The second one that I came in contact with was, we were driving on this lonely back road. We were going to go do an investigation for a newspaper at this cemetery, and we had one cross right in front of the car. And
those are pretty interesting.
Yeah, it blocked out the headlights of the car. That's how intense this thing was. It was like a black hole when it crossed.
Yeah, those are interesting. The ones that cross the road, and I'll have people email me or message me with a very similar type of a story where there would just be a shadow that darts across the road, and they can see the silhouette of this thing because it's blocking out the light, and so where they're off to, I don't know, but but it's very interesting.
So you say, I agree with you in the fact that they're more than likely curious, because a lot of the, like you say, a lot of the sightings, people see them standing in the corners observing, But there's been speculation too that maybe they're not, like you say, that they're not interdimensional beings, that they're aliens. What do you think about that kind of theory?
Yeah, I think some of them certainly could be. There's a lot of similarities between the reports of shadow entities and ETs. The fact that people will wake up and they'll witness them, either standing at the end of the bed or next to the bed or in the corner of the room, maybe even the doorway, and just standing there watching. And, there's, of course, a variety of reasons why they could be watching us. And that seems to be like the majority of the story, standing there watching, not really doing a whole lot. And I understand people get frightened because, it seems to be an intruder in their room. So people immediately think, okay, this is, dangerous, or it's dark and evil, or, something like that. But most of the times they're just standing there watching. And you'll also get, some of those stories that are very similar, the ones that do physically interact, where, like the ET abduction stories are very similar to a number of the shadow physical interactions, or even something like old hag syndrome, where they wake up and things is sitting on their chest.
Mm-hmm. That was something I was going to bring up when you talk about the ET interactions. There was a book out about this abduction in the Mojave Desert. These people went camping, and they had been abducted. And then, but what got me was after they got home. This made me wonder about, what we're investigating exactly, because from their description of when the ETs kept coming back to see them, the ETs were walking through walls and stuff, just like when we see ghosts. And so it made me wonder about, like these EVPs we're getting and stuff. Is it really people that we're reaching, or is it these ETs?
Yeah, I think sometimes they are ETs, especially if ETs are traveling interdimensionally. ETs don't always have to be, a physical craft that they've
Hmm.
touched down and they've come walking out, and you have some sort of physical interaction. These ETs have traveled, however, many thousands of light years to get here. And, it's, kind of that same idea where, we look at, okay, how do we travel outside of our own solar system? It would be extremely difficult, how, the length of time.
Hmm.
So you would have to believe that an advanced civilization has figured out that whole concept of being able to travel through space and time and be able to traverse dimensions in order to access other worlds. And that could be what they're doing, that, maybe we're just getting a projection
Hmm.
of their consciousness here. And sometimes it only comes off as a shadow.
That's a possibility, definitely. And then you get the ones that wear hats, of course, and then some don't have hats. So that's kind of interesting, when you start to looking into that too, for whatever the reasoning is of it.
Yeah, the hat wearing shadows, those are really interesting. And they wear a variety of different hats. Sometimes you get like the fedora, sometimes he's wearing a trench coat too. And it's
Hmm.
interesting because all you see is the outline, it's just all black.
Right.
But sometimes it's a top hat along with a cape. I've even heard of a case that where the shadow was wearing like an archer style hat, like something out of Robin Hood. And so, people speculate what the hats mean, or, if maybe they're trying to, or maybe they've interacted with another time period before and they're coming back thinking that that's the style, and they're trying to, portray themselves as a human wearing a type of clothing they've seen before. So there's a lot of different theories, but we don't really know for sure.
Right.
Some of these could simply be, again, a human spirit, and that's, the type of clothing that they wore, and that's, what we're seeing from them. So, and then there's, the idea that some of these could possibly be, energy vampires. That's what a lot of hat entities get attributed to, that they come into your room and they strike fear into you and feed off of that fear. And so that could always be the case as well. Again, we don't know exactly for sure. These are a lot of theories that we've put together, but, we're basing these theories off of a lot of information that we've gathered from people from all over.
Well, my other question too was that you talked about your experience where it was fairly physical. Do you run into a lot of physical stories about them being physical with people?
With not with the hat entities, but with shadow entities in general, not so much. It's more of a rarity. You do get that story sometimes of physical interaction. I've had other people tell me that they've also, been touched by these things, and it's interesting because I'll get asked, what did it feel like? Did it feel cold? Did it feel electric? And it's like, no, it just felt like a normal person touching me. It just, everything was black.
Mm-hmm.
And other people have related the same thing. There are a couple others would say, something like cold, but most people say it just felt like a normal person. But it's more unusual to get that. Most of the times they're kind of standing there watching, or you'll get the ones that are just really fast, very translucent, and they're just like darting down the hall or darting
Mm-hmm.
through a doorway or something like that. And it's like you just catch a quick glimpse and that's it. And so there's almost no time to really get any information about that particular shadow.
You know what it makes me think of? I did stagecraft in college. And one of the sayings that they used to have was everybody, when you're moving sets around and stuff, set pieces, in between scenes, you wear black because they can't see you. And my thought is maybe some of these shadow people that we're seeing are people that just don't want to, that they just don't want to be seen. It's a thing that they think because they're a shadow, nobody can see them.
Yeah, there's that idea, and I talk about something similar when I get into the idea of the simulated universe. That the whole world around us is actually a simulation. Whether you believe it's a computer simulation or something that's more organic or biological, there's a lot of different ways to view that. But if the world is a simulation, what would shadow people be in that type of environment? Well, they would be those people in the background that are kind of running the show, like the game masters, if you think of the world as the simulation as a sort of a game. And so I relate it to like massively multiplayer online games where you have like a game master that they're supposed to be hidden, but every once in a while you kind of get an idea, oh, somebody was here, whether you caught a glimpse of something or something with the environment was off. And so that could be what some of these things are, something from the external world or the home world, wherever we came from and the place that we're going, that afterlife, that astral plane or whatever. It could be somebody from there coming down and interacting with us here.
What you're saying kind of reminds me of Clash of the Titans. The gods when they would play chess pieces with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, the Matrix and the agents. Maybe these are the agents. That sort of thing.
Right. That's really interesting when you think about that. Now, you've been doing research into this stuff, and how have you done this research? Is it through the cases that you guys have investigated, or are you looking stuff up, for the scientific stuff, or how are you doing this?
It's a lot of a lot of different things that I've been doing. I mean, yeah, a lot of it's through cases and investigations. Things that I've been doing for years and years and years. Things like with the Shadow Dimension project, where I'm specifically going to locations to try to research this phenomenon. There's a lot of research. You gotta dive into the books and look up ancient history. These shadow entities do date back all the way to the times of like ancient Egypt, ancient Sumer, all the way back then. And, so you find out, how all of these, cultures throughout thousands of years have reported shadow phenomena. So there's a lot that goes into this from a lot of different angles. And, you get into, the science of it all. And so you start, researching all these things about how the universe works, and, you get into, things like Einstein and all that. So it entails a lot.
Have you been able to find, and I hate to say it this way, because like I said, we talked about certain people being more adaptable to seeing these things, but in the investigations you've done on them, is there a common thread that you're finding, the more you investigate, or is it just a random thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's, one of the things that we're trying to do, with all these different investigations. Okay, what can we, how do we organize this? How do we categorize things? Because that's how we as humans work. We try to find, the things that are in common, and we start categorizing, by those things. So, of course, one of the things is, the physicality of it. Humanoid figure, or a hat person, or a crawler, or a hooded figure, or mist, wisp, all these different types. So we've tried doing that. Something that I'm discovering is that a lot of times there's some sort of energetic catalyst, something that has provided enough energy in this environment that has caused this thing either to manifest, or has provided a point that the thing is decided to manifest there because there's enough energy to do so. And so a lot of the locations that I've been going to, or at least trying to go to for the Shadow Dimension, because COVID kind of wrecked a lot of that stuff last year, are places that are known to have vortex and portal activity there, highly energetic locations that have, witnessed a lot of this type of phenomena.
Interesting. So, going along that line, have you come in contact with, like you said, the vortex and stuff, but have you come in contact with places that tend to get more shadow people activity than others?
Well, yeah, that's part of my research, is trying to find these locations that have reported more shadow activity. Is it because of the, possible energy that's there within the ground, the Earth's energy? And a lot of times I'm finding that, yes, that's true. But those locations don't just have shadow activity. That might be something that's seen a lot there. But, people are also seeing apparitions. Some people are even seeing time slips at these locations where, they see, a host of apparitions, like, a family just suddenly emerges out of nowhere, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm looking at the ghosts. But then the ghosts turn and look at them as if they're the ghosts. So it's kind of interesting because, we're looking into the past in that moment, while those in the past are actually looking into the future. And so things like that are happening at a lot of these locations as well.
You just made me think of. I am a movie buff, but I'm very fussy about what I watch. And I was saying that you just made me think of that movie, The Others, with Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. Whenever I
Yeah.
give that example, yeah, that's what everybody says. The Others, and that movie is a perfect example of something like that happening. Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen The Others yet, see it. It's really
Oh yeah.
good. It's really, as far as what we all do as investigators, it makes a lot of sense. You know, whoever came up with that film, it really does make a lot of sense. Shadow people fascinate me. Like I said, I've been in contact, with a cut like the one in front of the car. I've also had a recurring dream of a shadow person who walks around my house, and I can see his shoulders and the top of his hat as he's walking around my house. So, like you say, it could be an interdimensional thing, or not. But I mean, like I said, that I've had the regular that contact, and then this dream thing that happens. And this has happened all my life since I was a kid.
Yeah, the dreaming is very interesting because we enter another state of mind during our sleep. Our brain waves enter into a different phase, and almost, basically like a different frequency. And a lot of people are, while they're dreaming, unbeknownst to them, able to actually astral project. Some people actually see themselves, floating, above their bodies while they're actually dreaming. A lot of times they just think it's a dream. You're talking about seeing somebody walking around your house while you're asleep, and it's a shadow. So you may have actually accessed, that other dimension, some other, plane. Maybe it's the astral plane, and you're seeing, these figures walking around your house because you have actually entered into, their same vibrational level, and you're able to see them.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. I need to hear that. Thank you. So, what do you say to people that think they've seen a shadow person or are seeing them in their home?
Well, I mean, what it kind of depends on what they say along with it. Because some people are very frightened, others are just, I want to know if it's my, Aunt Betty or something like that. So, I usually need some additional context with it. And a lot of people do come to me because they're frightened. They've seen some shadow in their home, and they're frightened. They want to know exactly what it is and what to do. And so I tried to extract more information from them. Okay, what was it doing? Did it actually do anything physical to you? Did it do anything physical within the house? Things like that. Because it could just be some relative from the other side that's come to pay a visit, or we've talked a little bit about the astral plane this evening. It could even be somebody astrally projecting. It just comes off as a shadow, unbeknownst to both the projector and the person that's witnessing it. So it could just be that. It could be a spirit that once lived in the house, and they're just either visiting, or maybe they still think it's their house. And I, of course, understand that a lot of people do become frightened of it because it's, a dark entity. It's shadowy in nature. It seems to be some sort of intruder. Of course, they didn't invite the thing into the house, and there it is. So I understand why it's scary for a lot of people, and in many cases, it's not. Now there certainly are ones that are nefarious, and what I do tell people is that it's very simplistic, but some people are good, some people are bad. Same thing with shadow people. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. So, I try to get more information. And a lot of times what it comes down to is, we need to investigate and try to find out more about who or what this thing is.
What's one of the most interesting shadow person cases that you've been investigating on?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. So probably the most notorious one is when we filmed for The Haunted a little over 10 years ago now. This was a red-eyed shadow entity case at a home in Edmond, Oklahoma. And we had investigated there, several times before we did all the filming for the show. The show makes it look like we investigated once, called out Carl Johnson, demonologist, to come and cleanse the thing, and boom, that's it. We were done. But it was really interesting because the family had been experiencing activity in the household for 20 years, and nobody talked to each other. They all kept it to themselves. Nobody wanted to think, have the family think they were crazy or anything like that. Finally, one day, it's just the activity got to be so much for the one girl that she finally said at dinner, what was happening to her. And finally, everybody kind of chimed in. Oh yeah, we've been experiencing all these things. Her primary issue was with this red-eyed entity that would show up in her closet, would terrorize her, would terrorize the cat. So this was a more nefarious one. And so we came out and we did a number of investigations trying to figure out exactly who this was, because there was a dark history to the house. There were a couple of confirmed suicides in that house. In fact, one was in her room by the original homeowner's father. He had taken his life in that room. So we're trying to figure out if it's one of these people or if it's something else. We ended up deducing that it wasn't any of these people, and it may be something that was attached to the land before the house was built. So as we're doing this, in one of the investigations, I actually saw a completely different shadow entity. It was a dark mist that formed up in her room, and everything kind of got dark and heavy. The cat took off, and all this stuff. So there was kind of multiple shadow things going on in this house. But when we ended up having Carl Johnson come out to help us do a cleansing of that house, because she was the girl was just getting into a very, very bad state. She had entered a state of oppression and was kind of borderline possession. So that's when we had Carl come out. We did the big part of the episode was the show was The Haunted, and the episode was Monster in the Closet. And a big chunk of that episode that I always hear about is when we did the cleansing with Carl, and it was pretty dramatic TV, but it was actually pretty dramatic to live through as well.
When you say, and that's what people don't realize either, they see this stuff on TV and they think it's maybe a 1 day, 2 day process. How long does it take to get through something like that?
Yeah, it is a long process. Sometimes these things could go on years, but this one was probably about 6 months from when we were first contacted. We had investigated their like full blown investigation like 6-7 times, but we were always like in constant contact with the family. Sometimes we'd come out just to pay a little visit and chat a little bit more and take a look at a couple of things. We did a lot of significant research with going to the libraries. We went to the police station to get different police reports. We actually had a retired police officer that we interviewed there. He came over the one time that we were paying a visit and chatted with him a little bit. So there's a lot that went into this, months and months of investigating, research, constant contact with the family, until finally we got Carl involved. And the show was kind of, in the background. They were working with us on the possibility of like 5 different cases for that show. They basically, had contacted us, hey, do you have cases for the show? So we presented like 5 different ones. And there were, 2 that were kind of in the works. And, there was only one that ended up on there, which is fine, whatever. But it was one of those where we were involved for several months, but again, with they only have like 40 minutes to really tell their story, and half of the 40 minutes was all the background of the family. And finally, when it got to us, it's like, okay, here's some investigation stuff, and then here's the cleansing. So
when you hit a family that has this going on, and like with that particular case, obviously you brought Carl in because it had red eyes. I would too. Yeah. What do you tell the family? What choices does a family have when they have these things in their house?
Well, when it comes to something like that, you start, flexibility starts to get a little iffy, because, the activity was ramping up, especially because, we are investigating. They've brought outsiders into the home to directly interact with what's there in the house. So the activity really starts ramping up a lot more. Once you start doing that, it's not, we weren't provoking, but those type of spirits will consider it at least a mild provocation because you're directly addressing it. And so, you definitely don't want to tell the family, well, you can just live with this. Although, I mean, that's an option. You always leave it up to the family. What is it that you want to do? Here are your different options. You can sage it yourself every night if you want. We gave them some tips on that. On how to, cleanse the home themselves. Like, we'll come out and keep investigating if you want, but, here's what's going on with your daughter. And so, it really got to the point where it's like your other option is to have Carl come out and cleanse it, and that's what they ended up going with.
Interesting. Shifting gears a little bit, it's not just shadow people that you guys investigate. What other stuff will you guys go out to investigate for people?
Really anything. It's certainly not shadow. I mean, a lot of people are just like, we have something going on in our home. We want to know what it is, whether it's, things are moving around, or they're hearing different things at night, or whatever it is. So, we'll go out and take a look, and a lot of times we end up just debunking, so much of it. But a lot of times you'll get that call of, my aunt or my grandmother died, a month or two ago, and now all these different things are happening in the house. Is it her? And so, we'll go out and we'll do that. And a lot of times, it's just a family member that's coming to pay a visit. So, we're open to pretty much anything.
When you talk about debunking, what types of things do you look for when you're debunking?
Well, kind of the big thing is, looking for, power sources. What kind of, how old is the wiring in the house, and things like that. You always want to do like, a baseline sweep of EMF, because, you could end up, and I've had this happen where, they're getting all kinds of, or reporting all kinds of activity in the bedroom where, they're hearing and seeing things and having all these strange dreams and waking up to all these different visions. And, you come to find out there's like this, main electrical trunk that's going right, down the wall behind their bed. You're at the foot of the bed, 6 feet away from the wall, and, your EMF detectors are, still pegged out because the field is so big. It's like, you need to move the bed out of here.
And what is that high level of EMF? What kind of problems can that cause for people?
Yeah, people they'll hallucinate. You get that, you'll get that feeling of, eyes on you, or the feeling of you're not alone. And especially, if that's a place that you're sleeping and spending several hours, that can really do some funny things with the brain where, you'll be in that kind of groggy state. And this could be a moment where people, do see shadow entities or things like that, which are false shadow people, because they have that influence of the EMF. So they're waking up and they are seeing some sort of hallucination that's not real. They might be saying they're seeing shadows, but it's like, well, you have this EMF here, so why don't we try moving you to another place to sleep? Do that for a month or two, and we'll see if you're still seeing these things.
What if you can you tell everyone about some interesting investigations you guys have done?
I've had so many, but still lying in Guthrie, Oklahoma is one of my, I actually call it my favorite haunted house. It's just one of those places, it's over 100 years old. You walk up to it, you look at it, this old Victorian style, you're like, yeah, that house is haunted. But you walk in, it's got this very creepy, cool ambiance. It's like, you're hearing footsteps all the time, and whispers upon the air. It's a very, very cool house. And it's kept up very well. Becky, who runs the place, runs a murder mystery dinner theater out of it. So, it has this, really cool ambiance about the whole place. And investigated there several times, with this one night, which was by far the most active. Started off where, again, just starting the evening with a baseline EMF sweep, and in the library, which is not really a place that we ever, got much activity. I'm just walking by the fireplace, and all of a sudden, the meter spikes out to red. I feel this whole huge wave of energy hit me, and I almost passed out right there. I was like, whoa. So, but I caught myself and I was okay. And that was just kind of like a prelude of things to come. So, we decide, okay, we're going to start the investigation now, and we're walking through the entrance hall, and we notice that there's this bureau that's set up in the entrance hall to kind of block this set of double doors so nobody walk through it. And one of the drawers is open a little bit in the bureau. It's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. We didn't really pay it any mind because we're headed back to this to what's known as the parlor suite. It's one of the rooms for the bed and breakfast, and we weren't back there for maybe a minute or two, and all of a sudden we heard this slam come out from the entrance hall. So we go back out there and notice that drawer had been slammed shut. So Johnny gets out his tri-field meter. I take out my camera, and on the camera, I got this really fantastic white wisp floating between Johnny and the bureau. But wait, we're not done. So we're there, kind of, doing some readings, or I do a little EVP right there at that moment for maybe about 10 minutes. And then we decide that we're going to split up because it was really kind of cramped back in that parlor suite. It's a small room. So I start leading a team up the stairs. And as I get to the middle landing of the flight of stairs, all of a sudden between myself and this other girl who had started up, this framed photograph just boom crashes to the stairs. It just shocked us all. And it was like, whoa, okay. So, that was a really, bizarre evening. There are other things that we saw throughout that night. But it was, I love that house. So you have to excuse me a moment. I forgot the power adapter for my computer here, and it's telling me my battery is running low. So I'm sorry to do that, but we don't want to completely get disconnected.
No problem. Anyway, it's really interesting talking with Mike because like getting back to the shadow people, you do this and it's not an exact science. You got people that might be, PhDs on your staff and stuff, but you're learning, it's a learn as you go when we're out doing this stuff. And so anybody that tells you that they're an expert at this is not an expert. They're just out to this, out doing this for either as a hobby or whatever. But you get smarter as you go, and you're able to take cases like Mike probably has a big filing cabinet. I have a big filing cabinet of cases that are just one after the other, so that when I do get on a case that seems like something else we've done, I'm able to go back through the files and maybe do a compare contrast to see if there's a pattern, and like when we go out, as far as our team, I don't know about Mike, when they go out, we're watching everything around us because the atmosphere can have a lot to do with what's going on in the house, or a lot to do with the investigation you're having. So we're forever monitoring the weather. I'm watching the weather every 30 minutes to see the changes, the humidity and stuff like that. I'm also watching. I'm also there. I am. I'm also watching. The moon, what phases the moon's in. I'm watching stuff like that. Is there anything solar going on with the sun? Anything like that? So you're always watching for stuff like that because it could have something to do with what's going on in the house. It could be a pattern. Just like I know when we investigate theaters and stuff as investigators, we like to go in sometimes after they've had a rehearsal or a show because again, energy levels have a lot to do with how sometimes the activity. So and walls can retain it, can retain thoughts retain energy. So after a show like that, after theater performance, sometimes you do get a lot more activity afterwards. Last week, I can go back a little bit before Mike comes back on and talk about something last week that I was discussing with the gentleman. I don't remember what it was. Let's see. Anyway, I'm lost here. Give me a minute. There was something I wanted to add to last week, and I was just thinking about it today, and it's eluding me. But anyway, yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen the Shadow Person, in fact, I take it back. I've seen 4, actually. We did an investigation out in this mobile home. Well, not a mobile home, but one of those big mobile home things that people live in. And it was a woman out in, I think, just outside of Woodland, a little ways outside of Woodland. And she had thought that she had a demon in her house, and this was going on. Yeah, storms and bad weather, that's right. And, all right, Mike's back with us. We'll continue this later. All righty.
Sorry about that. I guess I did get disconnected after all while I ran out to get the power cord.
I like to talk. It's good. So I was just telling everybody, we tend to keep track of weather conditions and everything when we're out on investigation. Do you guys do that too? Because it could have something that's pending, that has something to do with that particular night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting how, weather can really play a part in things. And a great example, was doing an investigation at the 101 Ranch out in Ponca City, Oklahoma. Excuse me. And we're really getting much that evening at all. There's a basically it's a park, but there's a couple of abandoned old buildings that are there, and the Great White House is what's generally considered very haunted. And all that's left is really the basement area. And again, we weren't really getting much at all. So after a while, we decided to take a break. We went up to get a bite to eat. And while we were out, there was this huge storm that just kind of blew through. Went back down there, and all of a sudden, we're getting activity all over the place. Meters going off, we're getting EVPs. We're hearing like Native American drums come up from the tree line, and we're seeing these glowing balls of light at the top of the trees. It was, absolutely crazy. So, yeah, weather can definitely play a part in all of this.
It's interesting you say Native American drums because we did a residential out of Marysville, and it was interesting because it was a real hot August night we were out. And we were doing this EVP session, and and the woman that was a client actually had Native American blood. But what was interesting about this was that, though it was like, as I was listening through the digital recorder because we were filming, you could hear the wind pick up, and it was moaning. But in the background of the wind, you could hear the drums.
Oh, wow. That's really
interesting.
When
you looked outside, there was no wind. That's what was weird about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting
that's definitely
you bring
different.
that up. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up about the drums.
Because another place where I've gotten that before is at the Hinsdale House in Hinsdale, New York, and a lot of people report hearing the drums out there. And we heard the drums, way back trees. You can only go so far into the woods before you hit somebody else's property. But so we're hearing the drums, and then off in the trees we were seeing these blue lights. Kind of dancing around amongst the trees, and one that was really, really large. And later on that evening, there were all these little blue twinkles coming down out of the woods. So it was really kind of interesting how the drums really kind of started all that off, and we started seeing all kinds of interesting activity.
I know what you're talking about with that too. I think it's similar activity. That's why it's good to talk to other investigators, guys, because you get some insight to what you've experienced, or to keep files. Because that same case I was talking about, we were looking up in the attic and we could see these sparkles coming down.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, after the drums. So I mean,
after the drums,
it's kind of along what you're talking about. Do you find
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. Do you guys keep files on all your cases so you can go back and like we do, and go back through and double check, like, hey, I kind of remember something like that happening at such and such a house?
Oh yeah, you definitely want to document and take as many notes as you can. One thing that I think a lot of investigators don't think to do these days, but we used to do a lot more of back in the day, is keep a notepad and a pen with you, so that while whether you're interviewing or you're actually running the investigation, you have something to take notes down on, and make your observations and all that. Yeah, you could just speak it into the audio recorder, but there's something else about actually writing it down so you have it physically there. That's better. And then of course after the fact you're kind of summarizing things into your actual case file. So yeah, definitely.
Now, you've done a lot of TV work. Can you tell me the shows you've been on?
Yeah, the first one was The Haunted, which we've already talked about. I did a little story on my ghost story back in the day. So most recently, though, it's been the Alaska Triangle. I was on a couple of episodes of that last year. Most recently was Fright Club on Discovery Plus, and I actually did a handful of episodes with a Russian station, Ren TV, called Mysteries of Mankind. So they had me tell all kinds of different stories, which was really kind of interesting because I only ever saw it in Russian when I actually saw the clips. And of course they dubbed over my voice, and there's no English translation at the bottom. So I was sharing this out to everybody, and they're like, we have no idea what you're saying in this.
That's pretty funny. And you've written articles also, right?
Yeah, well, I've done a lot of writing. So I have 11 books right now. The most recent, A Walk in the Shadows, Complete Guide to Shadow People, is, of course, the most recent. But yeah, I used to do a column for the Oklahoma City Examiner, several years back. I post a lot of articles and what have you to my website, and now I have another website now called the connecteduniverseportal.com, which has a member area where there's all kinds of other articles and actually a lot of, behind the scene videos and, vlogs and all kinds of research videos and things like that in there as well.
Interesting. So you're pretty busy. I mean, how busy is this a full-time thing for you, or do you have a regular job, or?
Well, it takes the amount of time as a full-time job, but I do have a day job as well.
Interesting. I think a lot of people do, but that's what I want to emphasize to people is they don't realize how time consuming it is for an investigator. Because I think that a lot of people you run into when you go out to do an investigation, they think you're going to have the stuff back in a couple days, and it's just like it
Right.
doesn't work that way because there's just so much
No, it
evidence.
doesn't. Yeah, there's so much. I mean, you might be at a location for, maybe, 6 hours or whatever, but, you have all the audio to go through. So that's, 6 hours of yours plus whoever else is. And, how many cameras you have set up. There's another 6 hours for each camera. So it's a lot of stuff. And a lot of times as you're going through it, you're rewinding. Wait, there's something there. You rewind or whatever. So you're constantly going over it, and then to actually prepare everything afterward for your reveal or whatever you're going to present. And with a lot of the work that I do, between Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, which has over 700 videos on it now, and the Shadow Dimension docuseries that I'm doing right now. I mean, I was up until after 2 in the morning last night. I had to be up at 7 for work. So just
Well, thank you for
it's a
coming
lot of
on. I
work.
know you're tired. Another question I have is I know you talked about bringing Carl Johnson in to do that
Mhm.
case with the dark entity, with the red eyes. Have you run into it? I know it's a rare thing for investigation teams, but have you run into in any cases where you've had to call out a demonologist besides that one?
That was really it. And,
Mhm.
I like that you said that it's, kind of rare because it is. And what's interesting about that, Carl being a demonologist, he and I are good friends. And we had him on our show, Edge of the Rabbit Hole. We've had him on several times, but the last time, uh, I don't know, it was maybe 4 months ago now. And I had asked him, okay, so, what was, your last, demon case that you had? And he's like, it was actually that one in Edmond, Oklahoma. So here's a guy that's, a renowned demonologist, been doing this like 50 years, and his last actual demon case was the one with me 10 years ago. So yeah, it's not as common as people think, but he has all that knowledge to come in and help people determine, is this actually demonic or is this something else? Because it could just be a really ticked off human spirit that's
Hmm.
making a ruckus and not actually a demon.
That's true. I have a question. How do you think this pandemic plays or is playing out or will play into these investigations?
I've had similar questions like that. Like people have, asked me about, if with the pandemic people are seeing or witnessing more activity and things like that. For one, when it comes to doing paranormal investigations, of course, it's a whole different field right now. With all the social distancing and masking up and things like that. So, over the last year, investigations have definitely been more limited. And the ones that you do are, it's definitely very different. Because a lot of people don't necessarily want you in their homes right now,
Hmm.
and when they do, of course, you're putting the mask on and things like that, and trying to do all the social distancing. So it's just a very different environment. But when it comes to like the question of are people witnessing more activity now? Well, I think what's going on here is that you know people are home a lot more right now, so they're able to be in their house and witness a lot more that's going on. So it's not necessarily that that COVID has kicked things up or whatever. It's just that you're observing more now because you're spending more time in the house.
Hmm. I agree with that 100%. Um, could you tell me? Thanks for the question, you guys. Can you tell me a little bit about the preparation you guys do before an investigation?
Sure. So. I'm one of those that likes to get as much information as I can before entering a location. I know that's always, a big debate in the paranormal community because a lot of people like to go in without knowing anything.
Hmm.
And I totally get that for psychic mediums, but I like to use information as a trigger object. No, I think knowing as much as I can about the possible spirits that are there in the house is really helpful. It's kind of like the difference between being a salesman just knocking on the door, hoping that you get a hit, and somebody who, is able to walk up to a person and say, "Oh, hey, I recognize you from such and such a thing." Yeah, like, kind of imagine, you're at some sort of event for work and you're mingling a little bit or whatever, and because a piece of information about, even if it's just one piece of information, you can walk up to a person and say, "Hey, you worked on this, or you did that, or you have an interest in whatever," and it gets the conversation started. And 20 minutes later, you're still talking to this person when it was just like one piece of information. So I like to try to get as much as I can going in and use that information as a trigger object. But like when it comes to the location, I'll try to get as much history as I can. I'll look up tax records, and I'll even dive into old maps and see how the environment was 100 years
Hmm.
ago, or however things may have been constructed back then. So uh, former tenants of the home. If I get some names, I'll start researching those names and trying to discover as much as I can about them.
I was going to ask you. I know besides Halloween, of course, do you think there are certain times? How can I put this? Do you think there are more active times during the year as opposed to others? And we'll just exclude Halloween because we know what goes on then. Because people, of course, it's all woo woo. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think a lot more people are looking for it around that time. Is
Hmm.
because people always talk about veils thinning and all that. It's like, well, yeah, but you've also kind of talked yourself into that as well. So, I always say when it comes to around that time, it's like, well, people are looking for it, they're expecting it, of course, they're going to find it. I do believe that there are some naturally occurring times. When you get to like the equinoxes and the solstices and things like that, where you're having like more direct interaction with the sun, and you even look at some of our like natural phenomenon, like I, when I was up in Alaska, the aurora borealis. I mean, you're talking about solar activity smashing against the top of the planet, and you're seeing the aurora borealis. But what's happening there is you're getting all this energy off the sun that's entering into the atmosphere. So just kind of like moments like that where you're getting a lot more activity. So I think. A lot of times we don't necessarily take into account all these different things that are naturally occurring that really play into it. And so like this coming year, I'm actually going to be in Egypt at the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx for the summer solstice. And so that's highly energetic time there. We're not looking for shadow people, but we believe something supernatural is going to happen. So should be very cool. But you go to places like that at those times because of that type of energy it's going to create.
Interesting. The other question is, how much info and research have you done with, to understand the Native American aspect of their spirit life?
I've done some, of course. You kind of have to, like when it comes to shadow entities, they actually, well, it depends on the tribe, but there are many of them who believe that the human soul has multiple parts, and one of those happens to be a shadow part of the soul that remains here on Earth to roam. One of those would be like the Choctaw. So that always plays a part. I spent 3 years in Oklahoma, so that was something we always had to be cognizant of. When I do research on some of the ancient sites of power here in America, like I've been to Cahokia. I live here in Ohio, where we have all these ancient mounds and everything all over the place out here. So those are things I'm very interested in how um, those sites were constructed and what their beliefs were, and how they believe spirit interacted with us here on Earth. One of my favorite little trips that I did. I was actually out in Vegas a little bit over a year ago for a conference. On the way back, I hit Chaco Canyon, out in New Mexico, which is one of the oldest ancient locations that we have here in America, and you could just feel the energy out there at these old ruins. It was absolutely amazing.
I can imagine. So how do people find you?
You can find me, MikeRicksecker.com. You can find all my books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can find the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, where I got, like I said, over 700 videos out there right now. The new Shadow Dimension docuseries you can find at shadowdimension.com. And then the member portal that I was talking about before, which also is going to have courses coming up here very soon. That's connecteduniverseportal.com.
Fantastic. Mike, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a long time coming to meet up with you. I've been wanting to do it for years. And I'd like to get you on later on and talk about some updates on stuff, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. Thanks so much for having me on, Charlotte. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
You have a good one. All right.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. That was Mike Rick. I guess he got the name right. Rexeker. Okay. I'm horrible with names. But that was fun. I learned a lot about shadow people and stuff, and I got to thank him all over the place for being on. Sorry about my thought patterns today. I've got multiple things going on right now. I'm trying to do a lot with this show that I'm going to be, building up to stuff. We're working on a teaser for this that you guys are going to see on Facebook. So I'm trying to formulate all that. But that was a great show. Wednesday night. Make sure you have popcorn, because I'm having something on that absolutely terrifies the hell out of me. And it's my worst nightmare, and it's spontaneous human combustion. And we're going to talk to an expert in spontaneous human combustion on Wednesday. And the reason why it terrifies me is, you're sitting there watching TV, and at the age I'm at, okay, you think you have a hot flash, you think you got a fever, and then poof, you're on fire, just like that, And that scares the hell out of me, because by the time you realize you're on fire, it's too late, because it's coming from inside of you. So that's going to be Wednesday night. Again, we're booked all the way through as of the 15th now of March. And like I said, for you guys that are regular listeners, I'm going to get a schedule out to you as soon as I get a few more bookings set up. I think I might be able to book to the end of March. Loyal listeners, okay? That means you like the show, share it with 5 friends. You didn't like the show, share it with 5 friends. Doesn't matter. I just want to get some listeners and build this thing up. I see our YouTube audience, we're starting to gain momentum with that, so I'm really excited about it. Also, like anything else, the majority of paranormal teams are nonprofit. We are not, and we aren't any different. So, I want to keep these shows coming, but it does cost me money. I'm paying for StreamYard, and I'm paying for my internet here. So if you guys can help me out, and the address is moving but beneath my face down there, my PayPal me, please do that. And, any little bit helps, because we want to keep these shows coming. And, I enjoy bringing them to you. We will have we will get back on track and have our journalism nights, for more serious story. Well, the more newsy stories also. So we're going to be booking people for that. But I've enjoyed talking to you guys, and we are the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. And we are 35 strong up and down the state of California. Plus, we have people in Hawaii, we have people in Nevada, and we now have people in Colorado. So we're really excited. Oh, Washington too. I almost forgot. Thank you. So we're really excited to bring this show to you, and we hope you come back on Wednesday to see our other show. In fact, I'll be getting the teaser up for that show, the lead-in about 30 minutes here. And you can get a look and see what's going to be on that show and who the guest is going to be. Anyway, guys, it's been real, and I'm glad you came, and I will see you next week. I will see you on Wednesday. See what I mean? I'll see you on Wednesday.